You're watching College Football Now. Harrison Graham and Chase Sr. with you on Chat Sports. And to kick things off, we're going to talk about Quinn Ewers, the number one overall ranked quarterback in the 2021 recruiting cycle, number one overall player. He's in the transfer portal, and he's visiting some schools right now in the state of Texas. Just some background on this kid first, and then we'll kind of talk about his future here, Chase. He, of course, reclassified into the 2021 class. He was supposed to be in this upcoming class here in 2022, decided to go to college early, took advantage of the NIL opportunities where he made over $1 million, goes to Ohio State, was basically their fourth string quarterback, and decided, well, I'm going to enter the transfer portal and basically restart this process. He redshirted this year for the Buckeyes, so he will still have 4 years of eligibility remaining. Here's kind of the timeline over the last, few days or so. December 3rd, enters the transfer portal. December 4th, meets with Steve Sarkisian at his house. Visits Texas Tech on December 5th, and there's a lot of chatter that the Red Raiders could land Ewers, believe it or not. Today, here on Monday, depending on when you're watching this, he is visiting TCU, and it sounds like it's down to those three. There was some early chatter on Texas A&M, but I think they decided not to pursue him, and we'll get some more thoughts on this from you in a second here, Chase. But real quick, the Ewers whirlwind continues. I mean, if you followed this guy's recruiting process, he commits to Texas. Tom Herman drama. Decommits. Then he goes to Ohio State. Could he start as a freshman when he's supposed to be a senior in high school? Basically gets no reps and doesn't play at all for the Buckeyes as C.J. Stroud ended up taking that job and running with it. And now, after all of that, he's back in the headlines. It's almost like he is in this 2022 recruiting class because a lot of schools would want him, but he seems focused on returning to the state of Texas. Again, TCU, Texas Tech, and the University of Texas are the top three programs. We will rank those and get some more thoughts on that in just a second. Now, BetUS is our sportsbook partner on today's show. If you want to make some money throughout bowl season, go to chatsports.com/bet. Use our promo code CHAT125. Put down $100, get $125 for free. Go make some money all bowl season long. And Chase, I know you have a lot of thoughts on Ewers as well.
Yeah, this whole situation fascinates me. We talk about Arch Manning as being the highest touted recruit in the history of high school football. I mean, Quinn Ewers was basically that coming out of high school. He was as highly graded as any recruit in the history of recruiting services. This is a guy who can throw off platform. This is a guy who can really freestyle. He's got a freak arm. And then there's the personality aspect to it as well. He had the blonde hair. He had the mullet. He signed that NIL deal reportedly north of $1 million. Goes to Ohio State, probably realizes, Harrison, well, C.J. Stroud is here. He has some eligibility left. This guy's going to continue to ball out with head coach Ryan Day. That Ohio State offense really able to turn the corner after some early struggles. They looked really legit up until that game against Michigan, and Quinn Ewers probably canvassed the landscape and thought, okay, I probably have to go elsewhere for my stardom to really come to fruition. And I love how he's looking at schools back in Texas because there's so much momentum behind that. There's so much of a following behind him going back to the state of Texas as well, and so many programs vying for his services. Now, I've been told, somebody who works in college football, that he's probably going to go to Texas Tech, but really who the hell knows? He's visiting all these programs right now, but there is some momentum behind him going to the Red Raiders, and that'd be a huge get for them, but also a huge get for Texas, a huge get for TCU or any other programs that land him.
Yeah, so we want to ask you guys this, and we'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. Where should Quinn Ewers transfer to? And if you think it's a different school outside of these three, you can mention that as well, because I am a little surprised he isn't looking at more schools. But what do you guys think? Pin comment. If you get hit with the YouTube ad break, just scroll on down and type a name of a school that you think would be a good fit for Quinn Ewers. All right, so we're going to kind of rank these, I think, in order of likelihood and probably what makes the most sense. Number 3, my alma mater, TCU. Look, would I take Quinn Ewers? Hell yeah, I would, and I think it would be awesome. But I just don't think it's super likely. Now, the new coaching staff, which came over from SMU, Sonny Dykes, his top recruiter, Rashad Samples, their whole strategy is own DFW. Try to keep kids home in the area, whether they're 3 stars, 4 stars. You know, if you can get some 5 stars, great. But that is their strategy. Look, Quinn Ewers played at Southlake Carroll, just down I-30 from Fort Worth, Texas, which is where TCU is located. So it's smart that they're trying to get in the mix here. But I read a report that they've even acknowledged, look, there's a lot of ground to make up there. He wasn't really on TCU's radar on his recruitment process because they just weren't in the mix initially, whereas a school like Texas obviously was. So I think it's a good idea to get in the mix. I think if you can get him, that's awesome. You absolutely should try, especially considering he's buddies with all these kids in this upcoming cycle, Chase, and there's a lot of chatter. You get Ewers, you're probably getting 3 or 4 more dudes as well, so that would obviously be a big deal for a school like TCU switching coaches for the first time in 2 decades. But I think they're just a little bit behind the other 2 programs in the mix based on what we've heard. Would it be awesome? Yes. Is it likely? I don't really think so.
Think about the most talent-rich states for high school football. You're talking about California, Texas, Georgia,
Florida,
Alabama, Louisiana, Florida. This is why Sonny Dykes was hired, so that he can own one of the most talent-rich states all across the country, because basically at your disposal and at your fingertips, you have every position group that you want. You are extended to some of the best recruits all across the country.
Yep.
And for Sonny Dykes to go to TCU, they saw the administration, what he was able to do at SMU, lesser brand, lesser program. And if he can carry that momentum from SMU, from when he turned around that program and kind of resuscitate TCU, taking over for Gary Patterson, which isn't an easy task at all, it's going to make the Big 12 interesting. It's going to make the college landscape very interesting. Now, before we continue to break down these Quinn Ewers destinations, let's tell you about our sponsor today, Fanatics. Wonderful deals going on if you go to chatsports.com/champs. Now, of course, Quinn Ewers was originally at Ohio State, but guess who won the Big Ten championship title for the first time in history? It was Michigan. And right now, some Michigan gear available right now. If you go to chatsports.com/champs, Ohio State fans watching right now, maybe you're a little bit salty that Michigan won the Big Ten championship and also that Quinn Ewers left. Hey, the bosses told us this was our sponsor for today, so don't blame me.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Exactly
and hey,
right.
If you're a Buckeyes fan, if you lose once every 10 years to Michigan, I think you're going to be just fine. All right, number 2, Texas Tech. I think 2-1 really could be 1A, 1B. We'll get to the Longhorns here in a minute, but let me just mention this. And, of course, there is a rumor going around that Riley Dodge, the head coach of Southlake Carroll, could be a target to join the Texas Tech coaching staff, and obviously that would be huge in trying to get Quinn Ewers, who played at Southlake Carroll.
Definitely.
Let me say this. If Texas Tech, Chase, could get a player of this caliber, you want to talk about having the potential of changing a narrative of a program? Texas Tech has not won 9 games in like 12 years.
Yeah.
They're 7-5 or worse. They have not won 9 games since Mike Leach was the head coach in Lubbock, and I think they have one 8-win season. I think Cliff Kingsbury in his first year won 8 games. Since then, nothing. It's 7 wins or less, and that includes with Patrick Mahomes, okay? Like, this team is starving to win more games than they have been, so if you could get this kid to Lubbock, are you kidding me? That would be monumental for that program.
People watching are probably like, well, Quinn Ewers, if he goes to Texas Tech, they already had Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes wasn't nearly the recruit that Quinn Ewers is and was.
Yeah.
We're talking about an overwhelming 5-star recruit.
The number 1 overall player.
Who could have gone anywhere across the country. The number 1 player in the country. Patrick Mahomes, when he signed on with Texas Tech, was a 3-star recruit. Yeah. So it is a little bit different. Now, is Quinn Ewers going to be Patrick Mahomes? I'm not sure. They have similar playing styles because they can play off script, basically throw off platform and change up those arm angles. But Quinn Ewers, a massive, massive get for Texas Tech, and a lot of rumblings that's going to happen.
So what do you guys think is the better program? Do you think it's TCU or Texas Tech? I think 10 or 15 years ago,
it's got to be the Horned Frogs.
Most people would have said Texas Tech, but TCU have a DFW in their backyards. I mean, the ceiling is just higher. But you get a guy like Quinn Ewers, hey, that can change the direction of a program in a major, major way. I'm biased, but I'm going to type TCU. If you think it's Texas Tech, type TTU in the comments. All right, number 1. And again, I think it's 1A, 1B based on all the chatter, all the rumblings. And we should mention as well, Quinn Ewers' dad said a decision will not be made here on Monday night. So it's going to drag out until at least Tuesday. So depending on when you're watching this, keep that in mind. The Texas Longhorns. And Chase, you know the deal. Even as a guy who had lived on the East Coast for a while before coming down here to Texas, what's the narrative been? Underachievement. Can't get the right quarterback.
Choke job.
Choking. Soft program. Can Quinn Ewers change that? Is that too much pressure for him to try and carry in Austin?
I think it's perfect. It's a perfect situation because there's so much drama that follows Quinn Ewers going to Texas. Is he going to bring Texas back? Is Steve Sarkisian's job safe now that he landed the top-rated recruit from this past recruiting
And he
class.
was initially committed to Texas with Tom Herman before he flipped to Ohio State.
Yeah, and look, I've lived multiple places across the country. I grew up in Philadelphia. I moved out to Illinois, lived out in Los Angeles, lived in northern Pennsylvania. Now here I am in Dallas, Texas. So I've been able to kind of gauge different fan bases. And look, for Texas, they're a very passionate fan base, maybe a little bit front runner-ish right now because they haven't had success really since Colt McCoy left. If you have a problem with that, those are just the facts. But to get Quinn Ewers there, it kind of adds to the whole spectrum of all of the drama, all of the hype. And honestly, give me more Texas drama, please. I think it's great for college football. It's great for us to discuss. It's great for recruiting. Need it to happen. And if it happens, maybe Quinn Ewers is the guy who brings Texas back. If not, and they fizzle, it's just perfect Texas fashion with what we've seen the last decade.
I think this would be huge for Sark, who really has had a tough couple of months. You let that second half meltdown against Oklahoma just derail the entire season before finishing 5-7. Did snap that 6-game losing skid to Kansas State in the finale, but still missing a bowl game in his first year as head coach. That ain't what Texas Board of Regents signed up for. I'll tell you that right now. You get a guy like Quinn Ewers, though, that cools things down. Even if Ewers never pans out, in the short term, that kind of calms things if you're Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah.
That probably lands you other talent in this 2022 recruiting cycle. And if nothing else, maybe it changes the narrative. Maybe it kind of talks people into thinking, okay, maybe this is Steve Sarkisian turning the tide here. Maybe it's, hey, the players say they love Sarkisian. You got to believe him. You got to buy into what he's doing despite what year one turned out to be. So I think it would be huge for him, even if the player himself doesn't pan out. I think in the short term it could just calm things a little bit in Austin because it's been a roller coaster for the past couple of months. Now here's the ultimate question, because we don't know, right? Will Quinn Ewers be a good player?
Yeah.
Type Y for yes, type N for no. If he's not, he's one of the biggest flops of all time because of how highly touted he was, Chase.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's really the jury that's out there to be decided. Is Quinn Ewers going to be a good player? I mean, he couldn't beat out some of the other backups. We're not talking about C.J. Stroud. We're talking about backups at Ohio State. Fascinated to see how it plays out.